This week in class, we discussed mechanical calculators, and I introduced you to the curious calculator. This video is a follow-up on how to make good use of the curious calculator. This particular curious calculator is my variation on a Chris Staker variation on the original, a ruler-sized calculator by Leroy Leishman back in 1916. He was an inventor of several mechanical computing devices. And I printed this out on cardstock, and I went 11 by 17 just to make it more visible. If you do not have the curious calculator from my class, I'll put a link in the description to Chris Staker's website where you can find his, what he calls the Marmite calculator. And you can use it exactly like I'm going to use this one here. This is just a variation on his Marmite calculator. All right. Now, for starters, let's just practice doing some basic calculations. Let's just look at our basic everyday times tables, okay? So what you will need is a blank sheet of paper, your curious calculator, and a sharp pencil. Now, let's say I want to do something simple, like 2 times 2. Well, the curious calculator goes from 10 and ranges up to 100. Now, you will note that as we start here at 10, we go to 11, 12, 13. They're fairly far apart. In fact, I've got tenths markings in there. So this would be 10, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, 10.5, 6, 9.9, 11, and so on until we get to 20. Once we get to 20, now we're going by twos or 0.2s. 20, 20.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 21, 21.2, so on and so forth, up through 40. Once we get to 40, things are really getting squished together now. Now we just go 0.5, halfway through, that's 40.5, 45.5, 55.5. After we get up here past 60, we're now skipping some. That mark right there is 61. We don't have room to print it, but there it is. So this is 60. This would be 60, 61, 62. This would be 62.5, 63, 63.5, and it's red all the way up here. Right, that little line right there would be 98.5. Sorry, that's 99.5 right there, yes. So there we go. So if I'm going to do some basic times tables, you will note that this begins at 10. So there's no 1 through 9 on here. Now, what the curious calculator will not do for you is manage decimal places. So what that means is for us, if I want to multiply something by 2, I will just use the 20 because we can view this 20 as 20. We can view it as 2. We can view it as 0.2 or 0.02. We can view it as 200 or 2,000 or 2 million. It's whatever we need it to be. And that's true of any of these right here. If we look at this value right here, 15.5, well, that can be viewed as 15.5. It can be viewed as 155. It can be viewed as 15,050. This curious calculator will not manage the decimal points for you. You'll have to have an understanding of the number you're expected to get and sort that out yourself, which I think is a benefit because I think students lose a certain understanding of math when they're doing everything on a calculator that just does it for you, electronic calculator. So here we go. Let's do some basic times. So let's start with the simplest thing there is. How about 2 times 2? Well, as we noted, there is no 2, so we're going to use 20 here as our 2. So to do just through basic multiplication, there's 2 ways about it. We can either work with the 10 or work with the 100. For this example, we're going to start here with the 10. So to multiply 2 times 2, okay, we're going to use the 20 to represent 2. You start by making a mark at the 10, and you make a mark at the 20. So this is my starting point, and this is my first factor, 2 times 2. And I'm looking for the product of 2 times 2. So now take your curious calculator and move it to the left until your factor that you want to multiply by, in this case, again, it's 2, is on the 10 mark that you made earlier. and read your answer above the second mark you made. 2 times 2 is 4. There you go. Look at that. Now I could just keep moving this if I wanted to. I could say 2 times 3, remember 30 is the same as 3, is, you can see my mark here, it says 60. I could say 2 times 35, look at there, it's 70. Look at that. And I could say 2 times 4 is 8. Now, I could also view that as 2 times 40 is 80. I could view it as 20 times 40 and just have to add another 0 to my answer, which would be 800. So again, you have to have an understanding of the magnitude, the size of the number you're working with, and that will help you manage your decimal places. So for starters, I would just like you guys to just practice doing your basic times tables, but use the Curious Calculator to sort them out. Now, we have a little problem with this. Not a real problem, but there's another way to work it. Let's look at our 3 times tables. So again, I'll put a mark here at the 10. Okay? Here's my 3. So I'll put a 3 right there. So let's start with 3 times 2. Well, the 20, you recall, is 2. So I will line up the 20 on my 10 mark. And lo and behold, this tells me that 3 times 2 is 6. It's a 60, which we'll see as a 6. Okay? So let's try. Let's see. 3 times 3, that would be our 30. Well, lines it, look at that, right at 90. Looky there, looky there. Now, I run into a problem, because if I try to do 3 times 4, I've lost space. Okay? When that happens, when the calculation or the number you need will take you out the end, you can also do multiplication by working from the 100 side. So let's look at 3 times 4 from the 100 side. So I'm going to put a mark here at, whereas last time we put a mark by the 10, this time we'll put a mark by the 100, and I will put a mark again by the 30. Okay, so this time I want to do 3 times 4, which in our case is 40, so I'm going to move my Curious Calculator till the 40 is on the 100 mark, and looky here, this tells me that 3 times 4 is 12. I could have done 3 times 40 is 120, it's whatever you need it, okay? Look at that. So that means that 3 times 5, line that up there, is going to be 15. 3 times 6 is going to be 18. 3 times 7 is going to be 21. 3 times 8, 24. And 3 times 9 is 27. If I wanted to look at my 9 times tables, then I would just start here from the beginning. I'll put a mark at the 100, put a mark at the 90, and I'll just move my Curious Calculator to the right. So 9 times 90, or 9 times 9 rather, is 81, right there, 81. 9 times 8 is 72. 9 times 70, 70, there we go, is 63. 9 times 6, 54. 9 times 5, 45. 9 times 4, 36, and so on and so on and so on. All right. So practice by just doing all your times tables, 2s through 9s. Okay? Now, if you want to work with 11s and 12s and whatnot, let's try 11 times 13. Okay? Well, here's my 11 and 13 right here. So I'll just put a mark at the 10. And I'll put a mark at the 13. And I'll move this to the 11. So 11 times 13 is what? Well, let's see here. That looks like 14.123. 14.3, which for us, we know 11 times 13 would actually be 143. Again, I have to manage that decimal place. That's some terrible handwriting right there. Gone. 143. Let's do 12 times 12. So let's put a mark at my 10, Put a mark at my 12. And I'll just advance this to 12. And you can see my answer is 14.4 or 144. Okay, let's do 3 times 17. All right, so I'll put a mark at my 10, and I'll put a mark at the 17, and I'll advance this until it's at the 3, but remember for us 3 is 30, so I'll put the 30 at the 10 mark, which is our 3, and looky there, 3 times 17 is 51. Look at that, done and done. All right, good. So practice your times tables there. You can now go up through 12, even 15s if you want to, and beyond. Now, let's say you're going to do a number that is going to take you up where our scale is not quite so defined. Let's look at an example of this here. Let's say 25 times 25, okay? So here's 25 times 25. I'm going to put a mark at the 10. I'm going to put a mark at the 25. And I'm going to move the 25 until it's at the 10 mark. And lo and behold, you can see, whoop, I'm a little off right there. Good, here we go, here we are. We're at 62.5. 62.5, which of course for us was going to be 625. And again, that's terrible handwriting. I'm ashamed of it because I'm trying to write with my hand, you know, left-hander, like that. So here, 62.5, or for us, 625. There you go. Now, sometimes you may have to, well, frankly, guess. But there's still an educated guess. For instance, let's say that I'm going to do 77 times 73. Okay, let's try that one. I'm going to write that one down here. 77 times 73. That's what we're going to do here. All right. So since they're clear up here past this, past the halfway point, I'm going to use the 100 end. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to put a mark at the 100. And I'm going to put a mark at the 77. There it is. 77 is right there. Now, I'm just going to move this until the 73 is at the 100 mark I made. 73 is right there. Okay, and let's see what we have here. 73. All right, so this comes out to, what have I got here? 5. I'm off there. That is wrong. Am I not at 73? There was 77. Okay. So 73 is right there. There, that's better. I don't know what I was marking last time. I'll have to go back to the video and watch that. There's 73 right there. I think was it 71. There's 73. Okay, so you can see here that my answer is going to be 5, 6 something. Well, I know now that my answer should have 4 digits in it because I have 2 digits there and 2 digits there. 56. And because the mark here is right to 56, I know I'm pretty close to 5,600, but how close am I? Well, I know that 7 times 3 is 21, so I know my answer has to end here, in this case, in 21. So, again, it's not an ideal calculating device, but if you didn't have the electronic calculator, as they didn't back in the day, this would be rather invaluable to you. If I were going to multiply a very large number, let's say we're going to do 5,762 times 74. Well, one way I can handle that with the Curious Calculator is to just do a series of multiplications and then add them together. So I could say 5 times 74 plus 7 times 74 plus 6 times 74 plus 2 times 74, keeping the fact that that's 5,760, and then just add those together. So again, do all your calculating right here with the Curious Calculator. Now, division. Division. Okay. My paper's getting a little marked up, so I'm going to put a nice clean sheet of paper. Oh yeah, and I meant to start the flashing light here. There you go. This tells you there's division coming. All right. So now, division. Let's start with a very simple one. Let's take 30 divided by 15. All right, here's the deal. To do division, I'm going to mark what is my dividend, and I'm going to mark my divisor. Then I'm going to move my ruler until the 10 is at my divisor and read my answer atop my dividend. 30 divided by 15 is 2. So let's do another example of that. Let's do 62. No, I don't do 62 divided by what? I don't know. I was going to do 62 divided by 31, but that's 2. It's the first thing I thought of. So let's do 81. Yeah, let's do 81 divided by 27. How's that? So I'm going to mark my 81. And I'm going to come down here and mark my 27. Now I'm going to move my Curious Calculator till the 10 mark is at my divisor, and lo and behold, 81 divided by 27 is 30. There you go. All right, well, that's just going to take some practice for you guys' part. I'm going to send, for the young kids, I'd like you guys just to practice your times tables. You know, 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, 5 times 5, all the way up. Just not only will it give you practice on your times tables, but you get practice. And as you're using it, you might be curious about why this works. And if you have an understanding of logarithms, you can probably sort it out. But prior to that, just rejoice in its cleverness. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful little thing here. So thank you, Leroy Leishman. All right, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.